Good evening, Jared.
You have 2/3 of the members present to approve adding this harbor master.
We should, yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. How you
Good
doing?
evening.
My dogs are now barking.
Okay, Ed, we're good on both.
All right.
Thank you, Tom. Before we start, do we know if we're expecting Ed Camacho or Artie? I did not see any emails from either of them.
Lola called and spoke to Artie, who said he was a yes.
Okay.
And Ed Camacho, I was diligent about including both emails, the ECAM law and his other one.
All right, so maybe we'll give ourselves just another minute or two to see if other people join before we officially start the meeting and call the roll.
Yeah, because right now we do have a quorum. We have 4, so.
Yep. We'll give it just one more minute if you don't mind.
Okay.
Artie's out of town. I know he's out of town this week.
Who is?
He sent me an email and he'll
Artie?
be out of town. Yes, because I invited him to be to give the invocation for 9/11,
Oh,
and he says he'll be away this week.
I'm almost positive Lola said she spoke to him, and you know. By the way, my daughter was very appreciative for the Oyster Festival tickets.
Great, thanks. I'm glad. It was a great time. We had a great
Yeah.
time.
She
All
managed
right,
to go.
why don't we go ahead and get started? It is, according to my clock, and apologize for any noise in the background, it is 6:31, almost 6:32. Welcome to the September 9th regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. Madam Clerk, can I get you to call a roll, please?
Mayor Rilling, Mr. Abrams,
Here?
Mr. Camacho, Mr. Constant,
Here.
Mr. Gilleret,
Here.
Mr. Casimis, Miss Young.
Here.
We have 4. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. First order of business tonight, as we look at the agenda, will be approval of the minutes from the August 5th meeting. Then we have a request to add a new item to our agenda, which we need to vote on and have a 2/3 majority approval to add to the agenda item, following which the regular vote, a simple majority for the item being questioned. We'll then get into our transfer agenda and any other business. So any changes? First off, I'm sorry, can somebody move the minutes for discussion?
So
Yeah, I'll move them. Just a quick question. I saw the memo that Tom sent out. Is it 2/3 of the present or 2/3 of the council total of our total group? I wasn't sure about that.
It's 2/3 of those present.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
And I moved the minutes.
All right, very good. Any changes, amendments, revisions to the minutes as included in our package tonight? All right. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
aye.
I will need to abstain from that vote since I was not present at that meeting. All right. The next order of business is a request by the finance team to add an agenda item to our meeting this evening. Can I get somebody to move the discussion of this ad and then specifically the recommendations?
So moved, Troy.
Thank you, Troy. First item of business will be a vote among the BET as to whether we will accept the additional item into our discussion tonight. In order for that to happen, we have to have 2/3 of those of us present approve the additional item to the agenda. Let the record also show that at 6:34, Ed Camacho has joined our session. Good evening, Ed.
Good
Um,
evening.
And I just a quick question. I don't know if you're opening the discussion, but I'm just curious why this wasn't posted on as it should have been regularly. So
I will defer to Jared and Tom about that, but first I'd like to move the item for discussion. If we didn't, then we can get into that.
I'll move it. So moved.
Thank you. All right, so before we get to a vote on the additional item, the question's been raised about why this didn't make it into our regular agenda during the normal time and posting. Jared, Tom, can I turn to you to address why this came up last minute, please?
This was a request. This is when the request came to us. We didn't get it till after the agenda was posted, and unfortunately, it's something that is very timely in the sense that a separate part of the funding for the boat is related to ARPA funding. And as you know, we have this deadline looming over our heads in December to get all the money for ARPA committed. And so because that is in the mix of the funding for this, it's important that we get it done now. If we have to wait a month, then you're looking at the end of October, and we've got to make sure that contracts in place and everything's acceptable. And we could be bumping up against the deadline.
With that as an explanation as to why it is in front of us, may I ask all in favor of adding this to the agenda this evening to signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Right. We had 100% agree to add the item, so we can now move that to discussion and then vote on the recommendation. Jared, Tom, again, I will turn to you to lead the discussion on the request here and the recommendations of the Finance Committee.
Sure. And I'll give a quick overview. Jessica is on if there are any detailed questions that need to be answered. As I mentioned, this is the total request. This total request is $100,000. But this is for a replacement boat for the harbor master. And this request is going to be basically a reallocation of existing capital funds. The funds right now of $100,000 are have been approved for the art and culture plan. As I mentioned in the memo, the estimate that came back was lower than what had been approved for the art and culture plan. And so we are able to reallocate $100,000 of that money and avoid any additional appropriation and be able to take the money from another account and project that had previously been approved. And again, there's another $100,000 in ARPA money that is also going to be used for the purchase of this boat.
Questions for Jared and Tom related to this item from anyone?
I can pull up and screen share any of the documents. We have a write-up from Jess and her team on the purpose and the use and such, as well as 3 quotes.
I have a couple of questions. One, what was the value of the boat? And what was the life of the boat that is currently needing to be decommissioned and replaced?
Sure. So the boat that we are decommissioning is over 20 years old. And the value of the boat was between $6,000 to $8,000, and which equaled the price that it would cost to just to fix the motor alone on the existing boat was was $8,000. And what we had identified was that due to the salt water, the motor had actually corroded on the boat to the extent that we couldn't get the pieces apart on the motor. And I say us, which sounds inclusive of me, but I was not doing the work I was not doing the work on the boat. But in addition to that, the hull had a lot of damage to it. It's a fiberglass hull. And so,
Yeah, no, that's fine. What I'm questioning is, are we replacing a Chevy with Rolls Royce? So, I mean, what was the value? How much did the boat cost 20 years ago? Are we replacing it with a comparable boat? I mean, because
right. Yeah.
value of $60 to an expenditure of 200,000.
Yeah, understood. So I can't tell you what the boat was worth 20 years ago. I wasn't able to find the original paperwork. What I can tell you is that we worked with the harbor master and the assistant harbor master and the harbor management commission in order to be able to find a boat that was suitable for the harbor master's work, that would last 20 to 30 years, that was a center console that could be used for health and safety purposes, rescuing people from the beach or from the water, in addition to installing moorings and being able to inspect slips and also the anchorage points. So we did get 3 quotes. The most expensive quote was $327,000. The middle quote was $296,000, and the quote that we looked at to bring forward to you is $198,000. So the reason why that boat was chosen was because it had a Yamaha motor. The hull was aluminum, which does best in salt water. And in addition to that, again, it was center console. So that way folks could be able to drive the boat while there are different passengers on it. And so I am not a boater, but we did work very closely with the harbor master and the assistant harbor masters, both of them, in order to be able to find a vessel that they felt was suitable.
Is this similar in price to what the police use in the harbor for rescue?
I believe the police boat was a lot more. I believe it was probably about $100,000 more.
Yeah, Jess, it's I want to say 350.
Yeah. And I believe the difference, and I don't know for sure, but I believe that the difference is that the police boat may have had in a compartment on it where the police could stand that could be heated in the winter, whereas I don't believe the harbor master boat does. So I think there's an enclosure on the police boat that we don't have.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was comparable. And are we going to a same vendor or just different vendor from where we bought the police boat?
I'm not sure where we're going. The price that we got and the quote that we would like to go with is with Munson. And so I don't know what quote the police received or what direction we're going in there. What I do know is that from what have researched, it's a reputable boat production company. We believe the boat will last to 20 to 30 years. What I have asked of the Harbor Commission and the Harbor Master is that we keep a logboat or a logbook, excuse me, where we actually have request capital each year in order to be able to maintain the boat and ensure that the same challenges with the existing boat do not happen. So are we servicing it? Are we getting oil changes? Are we hosing it down? Are we taking the engine apart and cleaning it, and so on and so forth? So, one of the things that I did ask was, can we please get a quote from a local boat marina in which we can take the boat in the number of times a year that's required in order for it to be serviced, so that we can get the 30 years out of the boat that it could potentially have.
Maybe we can dovetail that with whoever the police uses to service their boat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any further questions. No, this is an important capital expenditure for the safety.
Additional questions? I did ask earlier of Jared and Tom and a similar question to you. I just want to make sure that the BET understands it. Was this the highest and best use of the reappropriation of capital funds? The agreement, because of the safety issues, et cetera, was the most important expense, which is why they're bringing it forward to us tonight. If there are no other questions on this matter, can I get somebody to move it to an approval vote, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. All in favor of approving,
Sorry, and sorry, one second, sorry to interrupt. Can you tell me who moved this to open the discussion? I know
Troy did.
Troy,
Troy moved it.
I thought Troy did the motion, but he did both?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
yes, he moved it to add to the agenda and then for discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, so now for vote, all in favor of approving the expense as presented this evening, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion is approved.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jess.
Thank you.
And
I
just-
really appreciate you putting the item on the agenda tonight. Thank you very much.
And Jess, don't relax. I think you're probably gonna have to go to finance and claims on Thursday for this. It's part of the
Looking
next
forward.
step.
Right, and then we also need to go for the approval for the contract for the boat as well, which is the timeliness of this item. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
And I just heard back from Mickey Dosimo, the vendor they're using for the police boat is a company called Safe Boats.
Thanks.
Yeah. Right. Next on our agenda is our regular transfers that begin on page 9 of our package. Can I get someone to move the transfers for discussion and approval? Thank you, Kendrick. Tom, do you want to take us through the transfers for this month?
Yeah, sure. It's a pretty light calendar, both of them from contingency. The first one is us making the most of Irene's precious time this evening. But it falls within her world. It is for 21,000 for other professional services to cover the redistricting effort. Irene, anything to add?
Mute. No, that's about it. Very straightforward, is to pay the bill for of the consultants who are helping us redistrict the city of Norwalk to comply with state statutes.
And Irene, is this an overage from an existing planned expense? Is this a net new expense? Just looking to understand that if we can.
It's an expense that was previously approved, but the monies we had was some of the funds were used to cover, was it charter revision?
Yeah, so when the
Charter
charter
revision.
revision was done, there was a significant amount of publishing and updating that needed to take place. And as we all know, those books are pretty thick, as well as updating all the proper documentation with the state.
So these are all legislative affairs that we have no control over.
Additional questions?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I don't think you're completed that project yet, right? I mean, if I'm reading the papers correctly, we're still in the middle of it, right? So is this going to be the final cost, or?
I believe 30,000 was the agreed upon cost, and that was Tom Livingston item. But that was the cost that was approved by the Common Council. So
Okay, so we budgeted 30 and so far now we're paying out 21. Is that fair to say, or?
that's correct, yes.
And we're not completed the process yet? I don't
Correct,
think.
yes. Yes, no, we
Okay.
haven't. No, we haven't.
So to follow up on Troy's question, do you expect to be back in front of us for the remaining $9,000, or is that within your existing budget still?
We have the funds for that.
Okay.
So the answer is no?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
No, the answer, you are correct. The answer is no.
Additional questions? All right. Tom, Jared, do we need to move these do we need to vote these independently, or can we discuss both and then vote singularly on all of the transfers?
Yeah, I think we normally do them as a group, Ed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's talk to the IT transfer then.
Yeah, so this one is for the long overdue upgrade to the audio video setup in the council chambers. We have Joyce Liu here to answer any questions and provide a little bit more color on that. Go ahead, Joyce.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening. So IT applied for an award, a 40,700 Pura grant from the state, this June, to upgrade the audio and video equipment in our common council room. This grant, is a reimbursement grant, so must be used by the end of 2024. So we did go through in the summertime, we did go through the open bidding process, and one of the vendor, Adele Technology, which is a company-based audio video vendor consulting firm, they're based in Stamford, Connecticut, was selected for this upgrade. The total cost of the project is $78,729. We will need the full amount to enter into a contract with Adele Technology. So this request is just, item is just to request a BET committee member's approval to transfer the contingency fund to IT's operating, budget account to cover the total cost of the project. The city will receive the reimbursement from the state after the project is completed by the end of this year. And so the total amount that the city will be, out of pocket is $38,029. I'm here for any additional question regarding to this transfer.
Just a quick question. How long is this process going to take once you start the project? How long will be?
According to the vendor, is 4 months. 4 weeks. Sorry, so 4 weeks. Right.
Will they be able to use the chambers while it's being done, or?
Yes, so we did put into common council consideration because every 2 weeks we have a meeting. So they are well aware of this is the schedule they need to stick. So they were going to finish part of the the project, but we're still going to be able to do using the common council room while we do the upgrade.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Additional questions on this item?
Yeah, I see that there's a grant awarded for 40K and then the city's matching 38K, correct?
Yes.
So does that mean that the city's just transferring 38K or how does that work?
Yeah, because in order to get into a contract, we need to have a full amount, $78,729 in our account, and which is in our operating budget account. Everything is budgeted for, operating. So this one is IT do not have that fund to cover for the whole amount. So we are borrowing, asking the city to transfer the money into us. So in the end, after the project finish, we'll get awarded from, we'll get reimbursed from the state and the city. Out of pocket cost, it will be only $38,000.
So if I can jump in, Joyce. So Kendrick, it's conceivable that we get the invoice for $78,000. The city pays that 78,000 if we haven't gotten the grant money from the state. And then in which case the state money comes in, let's say it's February. So I don't know if you caught the part that this has to be completed by December 31st in order to be eligible for the grant. So let's say the state money rolls in mid-February. We'll take that 40 grand and put it into the general fund.
Got it. And the grant is a guarantee as long as the deadline is met?
Yes, we already got awarded and we have the plan, everything planned out, and we'll be guaranteed we are going to finish that way before end of December.
Additional questions for Joyce? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the transfers as presented this evening, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The transfers are approved. Thank you very much, Joyce. Tom, one of the things that is missing from the package this month is the contingency tracker. Can we just make sure that that gets back in for all future months?
It's there.
I didn't see it, so
Page 12 of the agenda.
Mine is, I have an outdated version. It says contingency tracker, but there's no data in it. So perhaps it's just my version.
There's one line item on the top, right?
It just literally says contingency tracker. Ah, wait, I'm sorry, split pages on me.
Page 12, Ed.
Yep, I got it now. Never mind, my
Yeah.
bad. User
So,
error.
yeah, what may have been throwing you off is, well, up until 5 minutes ago, we didn't have any contingency requests, for fiscal 25. So all this is showing is that the amount of money in there is 2.6 million and no requests. So next month you'll see the two line items that you just approved in there. But just to refresh everyone's memory, normally we start with 1.5 million. It's $1 million higher this year, 2.6, reflective of the ongoing labor negotiations. So we have additional contingency in there to account for any retro wage increases that will have to be paid when it gets settled.
Thank you. I believe next on our agenda is other business. And I believe the only other business for this evening is our Oak Hills report. Is that correct, Tom?
Actually, do we want to talk a little bit about the schools, Jared?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like to just give a little update on the schools because the question was asked during the last meeting.
By all means.
I think it was by Troy and Ann about the status of the South Norwalk School, Community School, and also the high school. And so I wanted to give there's not a ton to talk about in terms of physically what's happening with the buildings. I can tell you that the South Norwalk School, they're above the ground, they're out of the ground now, and they're starting to put steel up. So that's moving along. Less so in terms of the high school. We unfortunately Alan Lowe is away for a bit, and so there's not a lot to report on in terms of the physical progress of that building, the high school. But I also would like to share with all of you, because Ann Yang specifically asked about cash flow for the schools, and so I'm gonna share a spreadsheet with you all, and I'm happy to follow up and send this to you. And all right, can you see that?
Yep. Okay.
So this document is showing both the Sona School and the high school. You can see we've put the total amounts as they've been updated fairly recently for the high school anyway, where the full amount was appropriated to $239 million. And that's the total cost. That's not our cost alone. There were some expenditures on the Sono School before FY24, about $11 million, soft costs and acquisition costs. There was year to date expenditures through March of this year was about 16.5 million, and the available amount was $59 million. And you can see what's coming and what's projected there. And the important thing to note is that the Sono School is still projected to be on time and to open on time, which is scheduled to be about a year from now. So September of 2025. And you can see the cash flows here, the projected cash flows here. Similarly, on the high school side of things, there was year-to-date expenditures of about 6.5, leaving 232 million. We have projections, specific projections of cash flow going out about 2 years. So that's what you can see down toward until we get toward the bottom. And then we have an estimated amount beyond March 31st of 2026. The overall amount that we expect to spend after that date, and the expected amount of grants after that date. Again, that one also is expected to be on time, which for that one would mean a September 2027 opening.
Jared, where your top line where it says revised budget, revised expense budget. If we could keep track of this, if we could maybe see something like this each meeting, because these are the largest capital expenditures on the docket and they greatly impact our borrowings. But is that revised expense budget, what was the original expense budget? So if we could see what the original budget is, and so over time, see how the revised budget changes.
This actually hasn't, in this case, it hasn't changed.
Okay,
For the high school, well, it was always $239 million. And
and
so, but when the original appropriation was done, it was only done for the city's portion, which was about $50 million. And then, like I said, recently because we had to appropriate the full amount, so that we could enter into contracts appropriately. So it hasn't, the 239 has always been the amount. There's been talk of the cost possibly going up by about $10 million. But we don't have confirmation of that yet. And there's also, there's a state legislative component to this as well. Because this was a separate authorization from the legislature, which under which we got an additional reimbursement of 80%. And so in order for us to continue getting this, if there is going to be an increase in cost, that will probably have to be updated in the legislative language as well. Because the legislative language reflects the total budgeted amount, the total budgeted expense of the project. And so that's something that will likely have to be reflected in the legislative language.
and what is usually the timing difference between the first line of spending and the second line of grants / other reimbursement? Or maybe I'm not reading this appropriately.
No, you're right. You're right. It's usually about 2 months. There's usually about a 2 to 3 month lag, so 60 to 90 days. We know that we have submitted and received reimbursement, the first reimbursement for each of the projects already. And the second reimbursement applications have been submitted. So we expect those to be coming soon, but it's about 2 to 3 months.
Okay. Yeah, and if we could have an update just periodically as to how those reimbursements are going, that would be helpful.
I would agree. I might suggest, since we're on a quarterly schedule for payments and reimbursements, we get a quarterly update into our BET meetings.
I
Happy to
support
do
that wholeheartedly too, Ed. Jared, real quick, you said both projects were on time. They're on budget also, both projects, as of this point?
As the Sono School is on budget, as far as we know right now. As I mentioned, the high school we may need to add $10 million to it, which I know it sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. When we look at other schools of similar size, in particular, there was an instance in Stamford of a high school, that the cost increase went up by about 60%. And so they saw multi tens of millions of dollars increase in the high school that they've been working to get done.
If it is a $10 million increase, would the state be covering 80% of that increase?
Yes.
Thank you.
So there's, up on choice, there's no cap on the 80% reimbursement. So if this school costs us 300 million, will they still reimburse 80% of 300 million?
As far as I know, because this was a separate legislative deal, you know, there may be some tweaking to language that would need to be done in order to get the reimbursement for the additional 10 million, but that is our intent to get that. Whether or not, you know, would they go up to 300 million? I don't know that. I can't say that for sure. It's outside this, we're kind of operating outside of the traditional reimbursement structure and rules.
No, I understand. Well, the 10 million is 5% of the total value, but the issue is that it's just started. So, if you could help us in the next time we see this, maybe there's also a comparison to budget, actual to budget, and then any of the timing issues, so that we can understand budget versus actual expenditures versus reimbursements. So budgeted expenditures, actual expenditures, budgeted reimbursement, actual reimbursement.
And just so I understand what you're getting at,
What I'm getting at is just understanding what the creep might be relative to understanding if we are in line of our budget of what we were projecting to spend, or if it's moving outside of that band.
Okay.
As well as then similarly on the other side of that coin, the reimbursements. Are the reimbursements tracking to the timeline we expected, to the amounts we expected, etc. Right. I think Ms. Yang is right to want to keep a close eye on this, given the likelihood of scope creep, I'll call it, and things like this, and given the extremely large amounts, having as many headlights to that as we can would be very useful, both from a plan and an actual perspective, Jared.
So for example, if we look at the Q4, April 1, 2024, I think what you're asking for is maybe an addition of 2 columns here. So
Yeah.
we're showing that we budgeted this amount, and then what actually you want to see 2 other columns to show what actually happened.
Right. It may be easiest to see it as a bar chart.
So, and I'm happy to do that. The only thing I would just caution on is that any changes could, you know, that could just be timing. It could just be that, you know, things are moving as quickly. And so ultimately what's gonna
And that's fine, and that can be part of the narrative when we review that quarter. But understanding where we are from that perspective, whether it's just timing or there is a true shift, is something we ought to discuss and be aware of as a board.
no problem.
Anything else on this topic, Ann?
If there, I have nothing more relative to the schools, but if Jared and Tom could talk about the bond offering, that would be great.
Yep, I'd be happy to talk about that as well. Very happy, actually. So we had the bond sale last Tuesday, on September 3rd. It was very successful. The demand was really good, and it was really boosted by the expectations of the federal government to start lowering rates later on during this month. As they move, they're moving more toward concerns about unemployment and employment versus inflation. They feel like they're on a good track for as inflation is concerned. And so the market, sensing that, started pricing that into their bids. So we had been seeing prior to the sale, we've been seeing some other recent comparable sales taking place within Connecticut and in the region, really a couple in New York, Long Island, and they had been in the everything had been over 3.5%, were the rates that they were getting, and for most of those, they were the maturities, and those sales were not quite as long as ours. And we did very well, though. We had 10 bidders in our sale. The final rate that we got on the bonds was 3.37%, which for a sale that size, for the term of the maturities, is very good. And we're told that that's that if it's not the best rate that they've seen in Connecticut, it's one of the best rates of the year. So that, again, the timing was really good for the bands. The rate that we got was 2.89%.
Thank you. Additional questions?
Jared,
No, it's great job there, Jared. And I don't know if we congratulate you, but very nice. The AAA ratings came in, and I was happy to see that. I don't know if that happened in between our meetings, but once again, good job for your team.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate you saying for my team and frankly the whole community. Everybody should be congratulated. This is, we always focus on what's happening recently and what's in the capital plan now, but there's a lot of things that they're looking at that have happened over the last 10 years, 15 years. One thing in particular is the full funding, actually overfunding of the OPEB fund. It's at 113%. That's huge. It's kind of unheard of, especially within Connecticut. So things like that where you guys, the BET, and others, administrations, and well before my time, were consistent, and really committed, and disciplined in the decisions that they made, that those things all contributed to the rating that we have, and also to the rates that we ended up getting. So really it's really a team effort.
that's very generous for you to say, but I looked through the red herring, and it's an enormous amount of work to put all of it together. So
It is a lot of information to pull together.
It's a lot of information. Yes. And I will thank Tom and Chitsame, Karen, economic development,
And Agnes.
Agnes. I'm gonna leave out people, TPZ. There are a lot of people directly involved in assembling the document. Yes, the document is a ton of work, and happens over a number of weeks, several weeks. So
I would say we have a great bond advisor too, long-standing, healthy relationship with Bill Lindsay of
Lindsay.
Munistat, who knows the city and knows the agencies and bridges that gap very nicely for us.
with these rates coming in, I haven't looked at my sense is that some of the recent historical offerings were at higher rates. Is there any reason to try to refinance them in some way, or to gather a lower rate going forward?
So that's something that we look at as a matter of course. Every time we go out to bid, you know, Tom just mentioned Bill Lindsay. He does that. He does the analysis to see if there are, you know, any older issuances, to see if they make sense for us to refinance. And, you know, also taking into account with that is the cost of issuance and the cost of refunding, and how that nets out against any potential savings or for getting a better rate. And so it's something that we consider. You know, we ask our municipal financial advisor about it every time that we are going out to sale. And you know, it's something that gets analyzed every time that we do that, to see if there's anything that makes sense to refund.
Great. Thank you, Jared. And again, congratulations to you and the team for all the work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else before we move to our Oak Hills update?
I'd like to add just one thing, Ed. This does not have to be interactive. It'll be quick. Just to mention that there will be, based on the recent charter revisions, there's a new requirement to have a joint finance public meeting on the upcoming fiscal 26 operating and capital budgets. We will be doing that Monday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. in a hybrid fashion, meaning in the Common Council chambers as well as on Zoom. This is primarily meant to be the opening public session to hear comments and suggestions from the public. So we will be doing a very brief presentation, and so will the Board of Education. And the panelists are representative of the city's financial committees in terms of both the city side and the Board of Education side. So just an FYI, you're welcome to attend if you'd like, or welcome to put it on Zoom in the background if you'd like. But that's coming up in 2 weeks.
And will we get visibility of the presentation materials prior to the meeting?
Yeah, on our side, I don't know that we'll get the Board of Ed one, but we'll try. But again, there's you know, this is more so, you know, how's Connecticut doing? How's Norwalk doing? Are we bringing businesses in? Or, you know, what's you know, how's the local economy look? It's basically to talk about the pluses and minuses of the upcoming budget season. So, you know, those are the types of things, you know, we'll talk about what's healthy and what are some of the challenges out there, like the ongoing labor negotiations. Not that it's a challenge to do that, but there's an unknown factor. What are we going to set up? What, you know, what are the annual increases going to be? So those are the types of things that we'll be addressing.
Understood and appreciated, Tom. Just want to make sure that, again, as a board, we're informed and aware and can support any questions that may come our way outside of that public hearing.
Of course.
And really, the ultimate goal is to get the public involved early on in the process.
Yep, understood. Understood. Okay. Anything else before we give the floor to Alan? All right. Alan, it is all you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Pleasure to be here again. So I don't have both the August figures yet, but July figures was the first month we had. Just from a big picture point of view, on the operating side, revenue, another good month. We're over budget by $47,000 on the revenue side. Our expenses were up by a couple of grand, so that's a $45,000 net number over budget, which on the bottom line for the month of July gave us a net operating income of $178,000. Obviously, July is a busy month for us, as is August. Sneak peek at August, we did have some weather issues in August, but I do believe we will be very close or onto budget for the month of August. If there are any questions on the July operating, I will take them. If not, I'll just have a quick capital update. In a couple of weeks, we'll be starting our major capital project for the 2004-05, which is the bunkers. We budgeted $200,000 for the first phase of this $350,000 project, and we'll be starting in 2 weeks. There will be some effect. We will be working. We will not stop the projects. Golfers will have to kind of like play through, but we will be starting the projects. So we're pretty excited about that. On the capital side, are there any other questions that I can answer about Oak Hills?
Any questions or comments from anyone?
I would just say one thing, if I may. I do enjoy attending these meetings. I know when they are, but I would appreciate if I could just get a meeting invite to myself and to Denise Brown, and kind of not have to ask for it every time. So I'm happy to come. Just send me a meeting invite would be great, if I may.
Alan, can I chime in on that one?
Yeah.
I would like to do that. But recall, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, we were having a challenge with the Zoom bombs, people breaking into meetings, and they really tightened up the invite lists. So our guidance is that it has to be only the members of the commission or board that's doing the meeting. And the guidance is to send the regular links to everybody else as a regular guest, if you will. But
Okay.
what we can do is make sure that you get that email every
No,
month
just
instead of having to
sure
ask for it.
make sure I get the regular link. I'm happy to sign in. That's fine.
Yeah, no, okay, that's
No
reasonable.
problem.
Okay.
No problem.
So there was some thought behind that change in policy.
Got it. No problem.
Mm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any other items we need to discuss before we move to adjourn?
Is Lisa going to be, Mr. Chairman, is Lisa going to be speaking on the tax collections?
They had tax sale, Troy. They had tax sale going on.
Oh, is it today, right?
Yes,
It's
Yeah.
probably still going on.
yeah.
All right. Well, Tom, can you just relay a question? I mean, in her comments, obviously there was a lot of court actions regarding the recent appraisals and assessments. I don't know if somebody could just summarize what was going on with the ones that we were losing in the court cases.
That's actually probably more of a Paul Gorman question than Lisa. But we can, yeah, we can get
that's
a
a-
summary for you.
It's a big, it's, you know, it's a sizable 4 million. It's a sizable number according to her
Yeah.
latest narrative. And I just want to know if there's a theme or something that maybe for the future we could be looking at. I'm just curious.
Well, I think, you know, overall, this was an extraordinary revaluation, largely driven by, you know, the housing market that took off with COVID and never cooled off with 7% mortgages. It just, you know, you talk to real estate people who've been doing this for decades, and they're flabbergasted that it just keeps going. So, unusual circumstances for sure, but we'll get you a write-up.
If you get us some little narrative as to what percentages of what that went to, how many went to appeals, went to the court, what was our record, wins and losses, and what was the theme of our losses, preferably for me.
What
Thank you.
if I could add, maybe could be helpful, is to add on a quarterly basis where we are in the grand list. So we started the year with a grand list of X number of dollars split into commercial and residential, and where we are on the grand list at the end of each quarter. Because with the phase-in, I think what we were hoping to see is the grand list increase, particularly on the commercial side, such that when we came out of this, when we came out of the phase-in, that it's not going to look like 71-39, but it'll be 79-29, 71-29, but it'll look more like our historical 2/3, 1/3. So if we could see that just on a quarterly basis, because that will also show what we've lost on the residential side relative to any of the lawsuits and stuff like that. And same with the commercial. So, you know, where we are in the lawsuit that the mall has brought in to reduce their valuation. So just keep track of that.
I'd be happy to talk to Paul Gorman about that to see if it's something that's possible. I suspect it's not gonna be an easy undertaking. When we typically calculate the full grand list on an annual basis, and it's a lot. It takes a lot because it's not just there are a lot of moving parts to it, and it's not just the settlement of court cases, and there are a number of different things that are happening every day. And so it's a heavy lift.
Yep,
I think it's good. I think it's gonna be a
understood.
heavy lift. So I'll ask him and see if it's possible. And if not, he can come in and let you know, or maybe come up with an alternative to that, to give you an update.
Yep, that's
And
all we can ask, Jared.
May I
Yep.
make a point, Ed, just very quickly?
Yes, please, Ed.
In terms of what Troy asks for, in terms of wins and losses, I don't think it works that way necessarily. I think it's usually a settlement. They reach like a compromise. So I don't know that you're going to get wins and losses in that way. You'll get, probably some information regarding how many cases were settled and, were the result of a compromise and how many went to trial. I would be very surprised if any cases go to trial, but so that as a result, you won't get any losses, if you will. You'll just get settlements.
Fair point.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Whatever the clarifications are, I just want to get a feel of why, I mean, theoretically, everyone should have, based on, you just want to know why things are being settled or why things are not being disapproved, I guess. I mean, I just don't have a concept with her write-up, the narrative. I just want to get a better feeling of that. But I understand what you're saying, Ed. There should be some reasoning as to why people are getting reduced taxes, right?
Well,
I mean,
I think just that the simple answer is that, the value, coming up with a value for your property does not have mathematical exactitude associated with it. It's not an exact science. And so
Right.
there's always going to be a difference of opinion. And when you have that many appraisals, you're going to have people that are going to challenge the basis for those appraisals, and we'll have experts. And that's just the nature of the deal. I think that happens every year. I'm assuming that in the budget process, we budget for that. In other words, maybe we didn't budget at $4 million this year. Maybe we did. But there's something in the budget that accounts for these appeals every year, because they happen every year.
yeah, I understand that, but Lisa's been doing this an awful long time, and she even
says this was
says
a
in her
big number.
narrative, she
Right.
says in her narrative that this is an outlier. So I just want to know what she feels, or what somebody feels why this is an outlier. That's why.
So let's see if we can get an answer to that from Lisa after she's done with the tax.
Yes.
All right. Anything else this evening from anyone? Seeing nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? It is 7:27 PM. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
All right,
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Have a
Have a
good
good night.
Good evening.